Did you know there is a lake in Africa where animals can die and appear to turn into stone? The water can reach extremely high alkalinity, and animals that die around its shores can become preserved by mineral deposits, creating eerie, statue-like remains. But why is this lake so dangerous? Why does its water look almost unreal? And why do thousands of flamingos deliberately come here to breed? In the next few minutes, we're going to uncover the strange science behind one of Earth's most unusual lakes. And before we begin, take just a second to subscribe to Beyond Maps and share this video with someone who loves discovering places they never knew existed. Because what happens at Lake Natron is far stranger than the photographs suggest. Now, let's travel to northern Tanzania, because that's where this extraordinary lake is hiding.
Lake Natron lies near the border between Tanzania and Kenya. At the foot of Ol Doinyo Lengai, one of the most unusual volcanoes on Earth. The landscape around it is already extraordinary. There are mountains, volcanic rocks, dry plains, and enormous stretches of seemingly untouched wilderness. But the lake itself is what makes this place famous. Unlike an ordinary freshwater lake, Lake Natron can become extremely alkaline. Its waters contain large amounts of sodium carbonate and other minerals. And under the intense East African sun, the water can evaporate rapidly. As that happens, the concentration of dissolved minerals increases. The result is an environment that most animals would find extremely difficult to survive in.
The lake's chemistry can become extreme enough to damage the bodies of animals that aren't adapted to it. Its water can reach very high pH levels, sometimes around 10 or even higher. For comparison, a typical neutral substance has a pH of 7. So this isn't simply water that tastes unpleasant. It's a highly alkaline environment. And that explains part of the strange photographs associated with Lake Natron. When animals die around the lake, their bodies can become coated and preserved by mineral deposits. The result can look almost unnatural, almost as if the animal has been turned into stone. But the lake doesn't magically petrify living creatures. The reality is more fascinating and much more scientific.
And yet, there is one animal that has developed an extraordinary relationship with this hostile environment: the lesser flamingo. For these birds, the very conditions that make Lake Natron dangerous to many other animals can create an advantage. The lake's alkaline waters discourage many predators. Its shallow areas provide feeding opportunities. And during the right conditions, the surrounding landscape can become an enormous breeding ground. Thousands upon thousands of flamingos can gather here. So while the lake looks like a death trap, for one remarkable species, it can become a refuge. And that contradiction is what makes Lake Natron so fascinating. The same environment that can destroy one animal's body can help another species survive.
But there's something we haven't explained yet. Why is Lake Natron so alkaline in the first place? And how does a combination of volcanic activity, minerals, evaporation, and one of Africa's harshest climates transform an ordinary-looking lake into this bizarre chemical environment? That's where the story gets even stranger, because beneath this seemingly quiet lake, the Earth itself is helping create the conditions that make Lake Natron so unusual.
To understand Lake Natron, you have to look beneath it, because the strange chemistry of this lake isn't happening by accident. Nearby stands Ol Doinyo Lengai, a volcano whose name means Mountain of God in the Maasai language. But this isn't an ordinary volcano. It is the only known active volcano on Earth that erupts carbonatite lava.
And that unusual lava contains minerals rich in sodium and potassium. When volcanic material breaks down, rainwater and groundwater can carry dissolved minerals toward the surrounding basin. Eventually, some of those minerals find their way into Lake Natron. And this is where the story begins to get really interesting.
But volcanic minerals alone don't explain everything. There's another force working against the lake: the sun. Lake Natron sits in a hot and relatively dry region. Water enters the lake, but there is no major river carrying huge quantities of water back out to the ocean. Instead, a significant amount of water leaves through evaporation. And when water evaporates, the minerals don't simply disappear with it. They remain behind. Imagine adding salt to a glass of water. If the water slowly evaporates, the glass doesn't become empty of salt. The salt becomes more concentrated. Lake Natron works on a much larger scale. Year after year, minerals accumulate in the water. And under the intense African sun, the chemistry becomes increasingly extreme. This also helps explain something visitors sometimes notice. The lake can appear to change color. At different times, parts of Lake Natron can appear blue, green, brown, orange, or even intensely red. The colors aren't simply paint-like changes in the water. They can be influenced by microorganisms living in the extreme conditions. Among them are halophilic microorganisms, organisms adapted to environments containing very high concentrations of salt and other minerals. Some produce pigments that can give parts of the lake an intense reddish appearance. And when conditions become favorable, the microscopic life can become so abundant that it transforms the appearance of the water. From above, it can look almost like another planet. But the lake has another remarkable characteristic. It is extremely shallow. That means its enormous surface area can lose water rapidly when temperatures rise. During dry periods, the shoreline can retreat, mineral deposits become exposed, and parts of the lake can become covered in hardened crust. To an animal approaching from a distance, the landscape may appear deceptively calm. But beneath the surface is an environment with chemistry completely different from an ordinary freshwater lake. And this is one reason Lake Natron can be so hostile to animals that aren't adapted to it. Yet somehow, the lesser flamingos have turned this extreme environment into one of their greatest advantages. Their bodies have adaptations that allow them to tolerate conditions that would be dangerous to many other animals. They can feed on algae growing in the alkaline water. They can drink and interact with the environment in ways that would be difficult for many other species. And perhaps most importantly, the lake provides them with a relatively protected place to reproduce. Predators that might threaten flamingo colonies have a harder time moving through the hostile surroundings. So the lake's harsh chemistry becomes part of the protection system. It's almost as if nature built a fortress and then gave the flamingos the key. But there is still a major mystery. If this lake is so extreme, why do scientists care about it beyond its strange appearance? Because Lake Natron isn't just a bizarre place where animals appear to turn into stone. It is a rare example of life adapting to conditions that seem almost impossible. And studying places like this can help scientists understand something much bigger: how life survives on Earth when the environment becomes incredibly hostile. And that question becomes even more fascinating when we discover what Lake Natron can teach us about life beyond our planet. At first glance, Lake Natron seems like one of the last places on Earth where birds would want to raise their young. The water is highly alkaline, the landscape can become brutally hot, and much of the surrounding terrain offers little protection from the elements.
Yet, during breeding season, the lake can become crowded with lesser flamingos. Thousands of them arrive. They gather in enormous groups, feed in the shallow waters, and build nests in places that seem almost impossible for other animals to reach. So why would a bird deliberately choose such an extreme environment? The answer is surprisingly clever. Lake Natron provides something extremely valuable: protection. The lake's shallow, highly alkaline environment makes it difficult for many potential predators to reach the nesting colonies. The birds can establish breeding sites on small islands and exposed areas within the lake. And when water levels are suitable, those locations become natural barriers. A predator that wants to reach a nest may have to cross an environment that isn't easy to navigate. For the flamingos, that can mean the difference between losing a colony and successfully raising thousands of chicks. In nature, sometimes the safest home isn't the most comfortable one. It's the place where your enemies struggle to follow you. But the flamingos don't simply tolerate the lake. They have evolved to exploit what it offers. Their bills are specially adapted for filtering tiny organisms and particles from the water. And one of their important food sources is the microscopic life thriving in these extreme conditions. The same environment that discourages many animals can support enormous quantities of the organisms these birds feed on. It's a remarkable ecological relationship. The lake creates conditions that are hostile to many competitors, while simultaneously producing food for the species best adapted to use it. That is why Lake Natron isn't simply a dangerous lake. It's an ecosystem built around extremes. But there is another strange relationship here. The lake's chemistry doesn't remain constant throughout the entire year. Rainfall can dramatically change conditions. Water levels rise. Fresh water enters the system. Mineral concentrations can shift, and the appearance of the lake can change with them. This means Lake Natron isn't a frozen chemical experiment. It is constantly changing. Its water, its shoreline, its microorganisms, and its wildlife all respond to changes in the environment. And that variability can determine when conditions become suitable for flamingo breeding. Now comes the part that made Lake Natron famous around the world: the animals that appear to have been turned into stone. The photographs are real, but the explanation is often exaggerated. The lake doesn't instantly transform living animals into statues. Instead, when animals die and their remains are exposed to the lake's mineral-rich environment, mineral deposits can accumulate on their bodies. The process can preserve their shape, and after enough time, a body can appear remarkably rigid and statue-like. Combined with the lake's unusual landscape, the result can look almost supernatural. And this is an important distinction. True fossilization is a geological process that generally takes far longer. What happens at Lake Natron is better understood as mineral preservation and coating under unusual chemical conditions. The lake's high alkalinity and mineral content can contribute to this remarkable preservation. So the famous photographs aren't evidence of a supernatural lake. They're evidence of something arguably more fascinating. Chemistry can create an environment where nature appears almost unreal. And this is exactly why places like Lake Natron interest scientists. Earth contains environments where temperature, salinity, acidity, or alkalinity push life toward its limits. Yet life keeps finding ways to survive. Microorganisms thrive where many organisms cannot. Flamingos exploit a food source that depends on those microorganisms. And an entire breeding ecosystem develops around conditions that appear hostile from the outside. Lake Natron, therefore, becomes more than a strange location in Tanzania. It becomes a natural laboratory, a place where scientists can study how life adapts when the environment seems determined to make survival difficult. But there's one final question. If Lake Natron can preserve dead animals and support enormous flamingo colonies, could a place this extreme also tell us something about life beyond Earth? Scientists don't believe Lake Natron is an alien world, but the survival strategies found here resemble the kinds of environments researchers study when asking one of humanity's biggest questions. Could life exist somewhere else under conditions that seem completely hostile to us? And the answer may begin with understanding the strangest places right here on Earth. Lake Natron may look like a place that has remained unchanged for thousands of years, but beneath its quiet surface, the landscape is still evolving. The lake sits within the East African Rift, one of the most geologically active regions on the planet. Here, the Earth's crust is slowly pulling apart, and as that happens, volcanic activity, earthquakes, and underground processes continue shaping the landscape. Lake Natron is therefore not just sitting inside an unusual environment. It is part of a landscape that is still being created. The nearby volcano, Ol Doinyo Lengai, makes this even more extraordinary. Most volcanic lava is dominated by silicate minerals, but Ol Doinyo Lengai is different. Its carbonatite lava contains unusually high amounts of carbonate minerals. When these volcanic materials weather, they can contribute minerals to the surrounding environment. Water then carries dissolved material through the landscape, eventually feeding the basin where Lake Natron sits. It's a long process. Volcanoes, rain, groundwater, evaporation, and chemistry all working together. What looks like a simple lake from above is actually the final result of several geological systems interacting at once. And there is another reason Lake Natron remains so unpredictable. Its future depends heavily on water. The lake is largely fed by seasonal rainfall and surrounding water sources. During wetter periods, its surface can expand. During prolonged dry periods, the shoreline can retreat dramatically. That matters because even relatively small changes in water levels can transform the habitat. A shallow feeding area can disappear. A nesting site can become exposed. Or an area that was previously too wet can become suitable for breeding. For the flamingos, timing matters. Their survival depends not simply on whether Lake Natron exists, but on whether the conditions are right when they arrive. This also explains why the lake shouldn't simply be described as a place that kills everything that enters it. That's a dramatic description, but it isn't scientifically accurate. Many organisms live in and around Lake Natron. The flamingos are the most spectacular example. Microorganisms thrive there. Fish have also been found in parts of the broader Natron ecosystem where conditions are suitable. The real story is not that nothing can survive. It's that very few species can tolerate the conditions throughout the lake. And those that can have developed remarkable ways of using them to their advantage. But Lake Natron faces a much bigger question than its strange chemistry. How long can this delicate ecosystem remain the way it is? The lake's survival depends on a balance between water, climate, geology, and the organisms that have adapted to its conditions. Changes in rainfall patterns can affect water levels. Changes around the basin can alter the environment. And human activity in the wider region can create additional pressure. For an ecosystem built around extremes, even a relatively small environmental change can have consequences. And perhaps that's the most fascinating thing about Lake Natron. Its famous photographs make it look like a place of death. But when you look closer, you find almost the opposite. There is life everywhere. Tiny organisms thriving in extreme chemistry. Flamingos feeding by the thousands. Volcanic forces reshaping the surrounding land. Rain continually changing the water.
and minerals transforming the appearance of everything around them. What first looks like a dead lake is actually a highly specialized ecosystem, a place where life hasn't defeated the harsh environment, it has learned how to use it. But there is still one mystery left: the strange photographs, the red water, the volcano, the flamingos, and the extreme chemistry all tell different parts of the story. But when we put them together, we discover that Lake Natron isn't really a lake that turns animals into stone. It's something much more fascinating: a natural system where geology, chemistry, and life have collided to create an environment that looks almost impossible. And in the final part, we'll bring everything together and reveal why this bizarre lake may be far more important than its frightening photographs suggest.
After everything we've discovered, Lake Natron begins to look very different. At first, it seems like a lake where animals mysteriously turn into stone. Then we discover the chemistry, the minerals, the volcano, the evaporation, the microorganisms, and finally, the flamingos. And suddenly, the mystery becomes something much more fascinating. Lake Natron isn't a place where life has disappeared. It's a place where life has adapted to conditions that most organisms simply cannot tolerate.
The famous photographs of preserved animals helped turn Lake Natron into an internet mystery. But the photographs only show us the final result. They don't show the process. They don't show the volcanic landscape surrounding the lake. They don't show the minerals entering the basin. They don't show the relentless evaporation concentrating those minerals. And they certainly don't show the thousands of flamingos that have made this extreme environment part of their survival strategy. That's why the real story is better than the myth. Because nothing supernatural is happening here. The Earth itself created something that looks supernatural. And there is something else worth remembering. Calling Lake Natron a lake that turns animals into stone makes for a powerful headline. But it can hide the actual science. The lake doesn't instantly petrify animals. It doesn't kill everything that touches it. And it isn't completely lifeless. What makes it remarkable is much more precise. Its extreme alkalinity and mineral-rich environment can contribute to the preservation and mineral coating of animals that die there. At the same time, specialized organisms have evolved to survive within its harsh conditions. That distinction matters, because the truth isn't less fascinating than the legend. The truth explains why the legend exists in the first place.
And perhaps the strangest thing about Lake Natron is that the lake's greatest advantage for flamingos comes from the same harshness that makes it frightening to us. The extreme conditions limit competition, they restrict many predators, and they create an environment where the flamingos can exploit food sources that other animals struggle to use. In other words, what looks like an environmental nightmare to us can become a protective home for another species. Nature doesn't always make comfortable places. Sometimes it creates places where survival depends on being different. And Lake Natron gives us a glimpse into a much bigger idea. When scientists search for life beyond Earth, they don't only look for places that resemble Earth exactly. They also study organisms that survive in extreme environments here. Places with intense heat, extreme acidity or alkalinity, high salt concentrations, or very little water. These organisms demonstrate something important. Life can be remarkably adaptable. That doesn't mean there is life on another planet simply because Lake Natron exists. But it does show scientists that life can survive under conditions that once seemed impossible. And sometimes, the strangest clues to the universe aren't found in space. They're found right here on Earth. So, what did we actually discover?
we discovered a lake shaped by one of Earth's most active geological regions, a volcano unlike almost any other. Water transformed by minerals and intense evaporation. Microorganisms adapted to extreme chemistry. A remarkable flamingo breeding ground. And an environment capable of preserving the remains of animals in ways that can make them look almost like stone. But perhaps the greatest discovery is this. The lake isn't frightening because it is dead. It's frightening because it is alive, just in a way that most of us have never seen before.
Somewhere in northern Tanzania, there is a lake that can look red from the sky. A volcano rises beside it. Flamingos gather by the thousands, and mineral deposits can preserve the remains of animals in eerie, statue-like forms. It sounds like something created for a science fiction movie, but it's real. And that's exactly why places like Lake Natron matter. Because our planet is filled with environments that challenge our assumptions about what is possible. You don't always need to travel to another planet to find something alien. Sometimes, Earth is strange enough.
If this story surprised you, subscribe to Beyond Maps. We go beyond the places and facts you've heard before to uncover the strange, hidden, and extraordinary parts of our world. And if you know someone who would never believe that a place like this actually exists, share this documentary with them. Because there are still thousands of places on Earth that sound impossible until you discover that they're real. This is Beyond Maps, and there's always more beyond the map.